I still can't believe what my mother did after my grandmother died. She walked into Grandma's house like she owned every memory, every photograph, every piece of jewelry, and every dollar that woman had ever worked for. She changed the locks before the funeral was even over, boxed up the furniture, sold antiques that had been in our family for generations, and told me that Grandma had left everything to her because that's what mothers do. But the part that still keeps me awake at night is that she looked me straight in the eye and said, "You don't deserve a single thing from that house. You were never Grandma's favorite the way you imagined." I almost believed her. Then, 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from a lawyer I'd never met before, and he asked me a question that changed everything. "Do you still have the key to the safe deposit box your grandmother opened in your name back in 1998? My heart nearly stopped. I had no idea what he was talking about. Was I wrong for opening that box after everything my mother had done? Tell me honestly, because if you were in my position, I think you would have done exactly the same thing. To explain why this became such a disaster, I need to go back to when I was a kid. My grandmother practically raised me. My parents divorced when I was 6, and my mother was always chasing some new relationship or business idea. She wasn't exactly abusive, but she was the kind of person who thought every problem could be solved if someone else sacrificed for her. If she lost a job, it was because her boss was jealous. If a relationship ended, it was because the other person couldn't appreciate her. And if she needed money, well, family was supposed to help family. Grandma was the opposite. She was steady, patient, and careful. She worked as a bookkeeper for over 30 years and believed every dollar had a purpose. She taught me how to save money in a little glass jar on her kitchen counter. Every birthday, she would give me a small envelope with $20 and say, "Spend 10, save 10. One day you'll thank me." At the time, I thought she was old-fashioned. Looking back, I realized she was trying to teach me something that my own mother never understood. My mother and Grandma had a complicated relationship. Mom always accused her of being controlling, while Grandma quietly said she was just tired of cleaning up other people's messes. I never picked sides because I loved them both. But even as a teenager, I noticed that whenever Grandma helped my mother financially, it somehow became expected instead of appreciated. Grandma paid off her credit cards twice. She helped with the down payment on a house that my mother eventually lost. She even co-signed a car loan that ended up hurting her own credit because my mother stopped making payments. The older I got, the more I realized Grandma was protecting herself. She stopped talking about money around Mom. If she bought something nice, she wouldn't mention it. She even told me once, "Some people see love as giving them whatever they ask for. That's not love, that's dependency." When I turned 18, Grandma gave me a tiny brass key attached to a faded blue tag. She smiled and told me, "Keep this somewhere safe. You'll know when you need it." I laughed and asked what it opened, but she just winked and changed the subject. I honestly forgot about it. I tossed it into a small box with old birthday cards and childhood keepsakes, and over the years I barely thought about it. Then, about 2 years ago, Grandma's health started getting worse. She had heart problems and arthritis, but mentally she was as sharp as ever. I visited her every weekend. We'd sit on her porch, drink tea, and she'd tell me stories about our family history. My mother, on the other hand, suddenly started visiting too. At first I thought it was nice that they were reconnecting, but it quickly became obvious why she was there. She kept asking questions about Grandma's finances. Did she have life insurance? Was the house paid off? Had she updated her will? I remember Grandma getting visibly uncomfortable and changing the subject every time. One afternoon, after my mother left, Grandma looked at me and said something that I didn't understand until much later. She said, "People show you who they are when they think there's money involved. Don't ever forget that." When Grandma passed away earlier this year, I was devastated. Losing her felt like losing the one person in my life who was always there no matter what. The funeral was heartbreaking, but what happened afterward was even worse. Before half the family had even gone home, my mother announced that she was handling the estate because she was the only child. She took the house keys from the funeral home staff, contacted a realtor, and started making decisions without consulting anyone. I asked if Grandma had left a will, and my mother snapped at me. She said, "It's none of your business. Everything goes to me anyway." A few relatives questioned how quickly she was moving, but she brushed them off by saying legal matters were already handled. A week later, I went to Grandma's house because I wanted one thing, an old quilt that she had promised me years before. My mother wouldn't even let me inside. She stood in the doorway and told me that everything in the house belonged to her now. Then she said something that hurt more than I expected. She told me, "Grandma spent her whole life bailing people out. The last thing she wanted was for you to expect a handout too." I drove home in tears. I wasn't thinking about money. I wasn't thinking about inheritance. I just wanted something to remember my grandmother by, but my mother had turned her death into a shopping spree. Within days, furniture started disappearing. Family antiques were listed online. Jewelry that had belonged to my great-grandmother was suddenly gone. Then came the phone call. A man introduced himself as my grandmother's attorney. He apologized for contacting me so late, but explained that he had been trying to reach me after learning of her passing. He asked if I still had possession of a small brass key connected to a safe deposit box opened in 1998. I was completely confused. I told him I thought I might have an old key somewhere. He simply replied, "If you find it, call me back immediately. Your grandmother left specific instructions." I spent 2 hours digging through old boxes in my closet until I found it. The tiny brass key with the faded blue tag. My hands were shaking when I called him back. He arranged to meet me at the bank the next morning. I barely slept that night. Part of me thought it had to be some mistake. Maybe Grandma had rented a box for family documents or old photographs. Maybe it was empty. Maybe the lawyer had the wrong person. When I got to the bank, he was already waiting. He had a folder full of paperwork and asked me to sign a few forms confirming my identity. Then he looked at me and said, "Your grandmother established this safe deposit box jointly with you almost 28 years ago. She renewed it every year and specifically instructed that only you were to access it after her death." I honestly felt sick. I kept asking why she had never told me, but he just smiled and said, "She said you would understand one day." The bank employee led us into the vault. They unlocked one side, and I used my little brass key to unlock the other. I remember the sound of the lock clicking open. It felt surreal. Inside was a metal box packed with envelopes, documents, and a smaller wooden case. Before I tell you what was actually inside that safe deposit box, I want to know what you would have done if you were me. Imagine your own mother took everything after your grandmother passed away, told you that you deserved nothing, and then you discovered there was one secret your grandmother had kept hidden for almost 3 decades. Would you open it? Would you tell your family first? Or would you keep it private until you knew the truth? Pause for a second and think about it, because I had no idea that opening that box was about to turn my entire family upside down. The first thing I pulled out was a handwritten letter with my name on it. It was in Grandma's handwriting, and I could barely read it through the tears. She wrote that she knew my mother would probably try to take control of everything after she was gone. She said she loved her daughter, but years of financial irresponsibility had forced her to make difficult decisions. Then came the line that broke me. "If you're reading this, it means I was right to trust you." Under the letter was a complete copy of her will. Not the version my mother had been talking about, but a newer, legally notarized version dated 5 years earlier. The lawyer explained that the original had been deposited with the court, but Grandma wanted me to have a copy because she was afraid it might somehow go missing. Then I opened the wooden case. Inside were stock certificates, savings bonds, and account documents showing that Grandma had been quietly investing money for me since I was a child. Every birthday, every Christmas, every little bit she had managed to save had gone into an investment account connected to that safe deposit box. There was also a cashier's check and a statement showing the current balance of the account. It was just over $400,000. I stared at the paper for what felt like an hour. I thought there had to be a mistake. I wasn't wealthy. I wasn't expecting an inheritance. I certainly wasn't expecting the kind of money that could change someone's entire life. The lawyer explained that Grandma had intentionally structured everything so that the account passed directly to me outside of the rest of the estate. It had been legally protected for years. Then he handed me one last envelope. Inside was another letter. This one was addressed to my mother. It was never cruel or angry. It simply explained that Grandma had spent decades helping her financially, but she could no longer reward behavior that hurt everyone around her. She wrote that she had left my mother the house and the remainder of the estate, but the savings she built for my future belonged to me and only me. Apparently, my mother hadn't known any of this. The moment she found out was explosive. The attorney informed all beneficiaries during a formal meeting, and as soon as he mentioned the safe deposit box, my mother's face went completely white. She interrupted him 3 times, insisting there had to be some mistake. Then she looked at me and demanded to know what I had taken from the house. I quietly told her I hadn't taken anything. Grandma had simply planned ahead. She accused me of manipulating an old woman. She claimed I had pressured Grandma into changing the will. She even called relatives and told them I had stolen family money. For about a week, I was the villain in every version of the story she told. But then the attorney started showing people the paperwork. The safe deposit box had been opened jointly in my name in 1998. The investment account records stretched back almost 30 years. Every deposit, every signature, every legal document was there. There was no last-minute change, no trick, and no fraud. The worst moment for my mother came when she read the letter Grandma had written to her. She cried. She yelled. She called Grandma unfair. But deep down, I think she realized this wasn't about choosing favorites. It was about trust. The aftermath was messy. Some relatives apologized to me for believing the rumors. Others insisted family money should have been shared equally no matter what Grandma wanted. My mother and I barely spoke for months. She demanded that I split the account with her because she was the one who deserved it after everything she had been through. I refused. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I knew exactly what Grandma had intended. I used part of the money to pay off my student loans. I bought a small house instead of renting. I put most of the rest into long-term investments because that's exactly what Grandma would have done. Every major decision I made, I could almost hear her voice telling me not to waste what she had worked so hard to build. The strangest part is that I don't even think the money was the greatest gift she left me. It was the message. She believed in me. She trusted me to protect something important. And she wanted me to understand that love isn't measured by who demands the most from you. It's measured by who quietly prepares you for a better future. Looking back now, I don't hate my mother. I wish things had been different. I wish she had cared more about spending time with Grandma than counting what she might inherit. Maybe then none of this would have happened. But people make their own choices, and sometimes the consequences of those choices don't show up until years later. If there's one lesson I've taken from this whole experience, it's that you should never assume you know someone's final wishes, and you should never mistake kindness for weakness. My grandmother saw exactly what was happening around her, and in her own quiet way, she made sure her legacy went where she believed it belonged. So tell me honestly, was I wrong for keeping what Grandma left me, even after my mother demanded I hand it over? I still think about that question sometimes. If you were on my side, make sure to like this video. And if you enjoy stories about family drama, shocking secrets, and unbelievable twists like this one, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like these. I really want to hear your final thoughts on this whole mess, so leave a comment below and tell me what you would have done if you had opened that safe deposit box. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.